Now,
on my part.
That's already out. What do you have that you can tell us about between now and Christmas? Anything new in cases?
Well, we will be next week. Well, as we're recording this, next week I'll be leaving for Asia and Europe to kind of, as I mentioned, the CES show the first week of January, and that's based in Las Vegas. So that's primarily American, U.S., North America interest, U.S. and Canada. Some international people show up, but a lot of the press, and people from Asia and Europe, can't bother to come to Las Vegas. So I'll be going out in early November showing those people kind of a preview of what we're going to be showing at CES. One case that I will talk about now that you can look forward to probably mid-November, early December time frame is called the 600. With that naming, you can tell that it fits into our gaming line of 600, 300, 200, 900, 1200, et cetera.
Right.
And that will be a mid-priced solution right around the $100 price point. It will be an upgrade of cooling capability compared to the 300 because it will have one of our 200-millimeter fans on the top. It will have some other functionality that people will like as well, and we think it'll fill in the product line very nice, so that's something that people can look forward to. We also have coming in November a new top-of-the-line power supply called the True Power Quattro TPQ 1200. We've actually talked about this power supply for a while, and we were originally going to ship it in last summer, but our engineers came up with this wonderful idea last year, a couple of months ago, to improve it. And so rather than just, ship what we had, we decided to hold it and ship it later. And basically this has already been NVIDIA qualified for Quad SLI. It's also 80 plus silver certified. So this is a very high performance power supply. And we took that performance and made it even greater. One of the things that you want in a quality power supply is stability. And if you're really doing high-end gaming, the current draw can be, really intense as you move to different segments of the game or depending on the game that you're playing. And that can cause, rapid voltage change in the output of the power supply. And we tried to come up with a way to, make as stable as possible of the power supply for the real enthusiast users. And what we came up with was a feature called Power Cache. And what this is a extra capacitor, which, as you know, holds as a store of energy inside the circuit. All power supplies inside the case of the power supply have output capacitors that hold energy for instantaneous ups and downs and also filter and make it as clean as possible. But what we decided here was we'll put a 2200 microfarad capacitor right at the end of the major 12-volt lines coming out of the power supply. So right by your graphics processors, by your CPU, whatever, you have a store of energy right there for instantaneous bursts of energy. And that'll make it the most stable, the most clean power experience that you can possibly have.
Now, let's back up a second to make sure everybody understands this. There are already capacitors that basically do this job, but they do it for the whole power supply at once, right?
Right.
And what you're talking about is these are specifically designed to work on those independent 12-volt rails, each rail independently, so that if one item has a draw, this draws from that capacitor, not from the whole power supply.
Right, and it's in line on the cable right by the connector.
Right.
To your motherboard. So it's not inside the power supply, it's actually external and it's by the connector.
Well, now how much does that increase the size of the cabling?
Well, it's just a little. The cable is mostly normal size. There's just a little plastic surround around the capacitor, obviously to protect it, right by the where you connect it, and we've left just enough room so that you can connect it and bend it in so that I'm sure there'll be somebody somewhere that'll have some kind of clearance problem with it. There's anytime you do anything good, it's always bad for someone.
Right, but it doesn't reduce the flexibility of the cable.
No, it doesn't.
Now, how much of a change can this handle? I mean, can this
Oh,
go drastic from one end of the scale to the other just from
Oh,
this capacitor?
Oh yeah. I mean, it could. For what my people were telling me is the engineers, of course, because I confess I'm not an engineer, was that it can stabilize like a 25 amp power demand really quickly. That might actually cause your line to drop by as much as a volt or more in a normal swing, thus perhaps causing really an unstable situation. And with this, it'll just barely yawn.
Now, I'm presuming this power supply is one of your hybrid cabling
hybrid
systems?
cable management. That's
okay.
correct.
I'm presuming then as well, this is only on the actual hardwired cables.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Is this something that we might see down the road moving down to the smaller power supplies?
Well, yes, this is something depending on how it is received, and if users see the benefit, that we could certainly consider moving down in price points and power points. Some things, there has to be enough power for it. Well, for example, another one of our products is our CP850 and CP1000, or the Antec exclusive form factor that only fits in a few of our cases. And the advantage of that is that gets the price performance down because there's more room for cooling. We can put in different components than putting them all on a really crowded circuit board, et cetera. But you basically, as you move down in power, about 850 watt is as low as you can go, and really get a cost to performance benefit. So, like, for example, if we use the CP form factor in a 650 watt, it would be basically about the same price as one of our higher level 650 watt power supplies. So the same thing applies here. This performance enhancement and benefit probably isn't going to have the impact that somebody would have on a 550 watt system, because one, the users that's using a 550 watt system isn't going to be stressing it and putting the demand on the way that somebody that really is overclocking or like I say, using quad or triple SLI at in a 1200 watt system. So there's a diminishing benefit there, and then also because of the power demands, it might not be worth the extra cost to the user.
Okay, so basically it's going to be a cost to performance factor evaluation against the size of the power supply. So This is probably something we're only going to see in, say, 850 watt and up that are for the bigger systems.
Right, and you'll only, and we'll introduce it with this power supply, and we'll see how the market responds, because that's also important. I mean, it's nice to have great ideas, but if the world doesn't share our enthusiasm, what can you do?
Okay, now, anything else you guys got exciting that's going to release this year?
Let's see. We'll, like I say, that new case, and then we'll have a whole slew of accessories for the notebook business. In terms of we're expanding our notebook cooler line, which is, I know, something that you don't necessarily get into. But,
no. We're getting into that big time here.
Okay,
lately.
Antec was one of the first to come out with a notebook cooler, and our original notebook cooler is one of the best sellers in places like Staples and stuff, BJ's Wholesale, et cetera, around the country. We'll be expanding that product line. Early next year, you'll see some new improvements to our famous Sonata, the classic quiet computing case. We'll be coming out with a Sonata 4 that will have some substantial enhancements over the current Sonata 3, which has been one of our best sellers. But I think that'll be more towards early next year. And then we'll be previewing on this tour a radical new design of something that we'll be showing for the first time at CES. So for a case that I think people will be very excited about, but that I'm not prepared to talk about at this point. We can't tip our hands to our competitors. We know that they listen to your show.
You've given us all sorts of good stuff, man. You got us all drooling now, waiting for the new stuff to appear.
Well, everybody's got to wait for Santa Claus, right?
All right, Scott. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure, Ed. I always love spending some time with you and your listeners, and I hope to be able to join you again soon.